Hello everyone, welcome to my review for a Splendid Soirée. This time we'll be looking at Ishtar, Berkut, Reinhardt, and Neff. There is also a few things I have to say concerning BST in general for this, yet again. However, I'll talk about it when we get to it. The first two units are completely fine as far as BST is concerned. Anyway, we'll start from the bottom with Reinhardt. Yes, Reinhardt is, strangely enough, the worst unit of the banner. That's not to say he's a bad unit. Every unit of this banner are actually really strong. It's just, being a flyer unit limits your utility by quite a bit. That said, the main issue also becomes the fact that he's a green dancer. There are other green dancers, namely Raisin, in the pool. And, not to mention, Raisin has a very good stat line, so pulling for green dancer is a bit eh. Not to mention, as far as his weapon goes, his weapon is good. Don't get me wrong, his weapon is genuinely good. It's just, because of his low speed, and because you're considering green flyers here, there are quite a few candidates that can just pull up the same amount of damage, just about as well. However, there's no comparison for Reinhardt here, because, well, the comparison are not close in stats. You see, the only two units that are close, which are Summer Levitane and Spring Camilla, they are, first and foremost, used as a Raven Tome unit to deal with archers. Yes, Reinhardt can actually be used in that way as well, but it would be kind of weird to do so, considering the tome he has. And even then, because he's a dancer, he doesn't really have enough bulk to really work as this, especially with units such as Alm simply existing. So, I would genuinely just say leave it to them. I believe even Camilla has roughly around the same bulk, if not better. And Camilla is very old at this point. That said, if you do wish to build him, here is how I would do it. Now, there is another thing that I have to mention. This is in a gold setup with a rally attack res plus user. If you don't have anything of the sort, take 6 attack and res out of there. This is another reason why I consider him to be not that great, because at the end of the day, yes, I have 62 attack here, okay, if you don't consider the buffs. Potentially more because of goats. However, a Blade Tome can do more or less the same, and they are very hard to typically kill in one hit. For example, my Nino, who, mind you, is plus 10, hardly ever gets one-shotted. She needs to be panicked, and the enemy needs to double a unit with 48 base speed for her to die. So it's very unlikely to find her dead. And so, because she doesn't really get killed easily, a lot of the time, well, even if he's buffed here, right, and he has 3 goads on him, that's 68 attack that he hits twice with. He's not going to quad, that much is more or less certain, unless you build him purely for quadding with Darting Blow into Sparrow 3. However, if you do that kind of thing, even then he's going to be very iffy. With Speed Plus and Swift Sparrow 3 and obviously goads and all of this, it can work. It's just not really consistent is the issue. And you lose damage overall if you miss the quad. So it's iffy. However, there is one thing that you can actually do that is kind of smart, and it's use impact skills. Now, at first, they don't really sound like a good idea, until you realize you can use Brazens in combination with it. However, another thing you could do is run Brash Desperation. Impact makes so you don't get hit twice, so getting kill in one hit becomes a lot harder. I don't have the set up there, but it's still a very good set to keep in mind, because Brash Desperation will make his attack quad, and he's gonna do a lot better for it. And if you're in a goat setup, Even if you have such skills such as Gyol, you might even be able to quad regardless, because Goad will give you that extra 12 speed, so you can actually quad units such as Rid, which has low speed but blocked follow-ups, if you're debuffed, that is. Still, overall, he's pretty much the worst unit of the banner. That is just to say every other unit are amazing in their own right, for reasons that they honestly shouldn't. For the most part, you can even use most of these units as not dancers and run repo instead. It's almost like dance is just part of the toolkit that they can use, but frankly they can just say, I don't wanna. And they'd be fine, so that gives you an idea. Moving up to Ishtar. Yes, I do consider Ishtar to be that low on the list. As we mentioned before, Blade Tomes runs rampant in flyer teams. So having a quad weapon is not that impressive. That said, it is quite good. It's just... And obviously, she's going to be better than Reinhardt. They have the same attack, except Ishtar has a speed stat. However, Ishtar runs into one main issue, and it's the fact that our defense is quite frail on low merges. Thankfully, a new seal that we just got, called Sturdy Blow 2, fixes that for the most part, thankfully. That said, while it does fix it, it does remove the ability to run Heavy Blade, which gets rid of quite a bit of potential. Still, overall, a fairly solid unit. If you look even in comparison, this is her compared to the best red mage unit of this game. As you can see, she has a slightly better offense, and as far as defense goes, yes, she is considered slightly worse, but frankly, it's not even that much. In a fortify own setup, which you typically are going to run if you run a Blade Tome, you're still going to hit that 58 bulk. Hell, at this point you probably will ditch Swift Sparrow for Fury, pushing that bulk up to 61. The reason why you would run Fury over Swift Sparrow is that your speed will already be overkill at that point. Fury with own flyers, you're already at 45 speed. And that's not even mentioning stuff such as drive speed being used as a seal, which is very much usable and very much should be used in combo with it. At that point, you become fairly hard to kill. 61 bulk is really difficult, but hey, if you think that's not enough, you can still run Sturdy Blow as a seal, pushing your bulk even higher to 65. Like I said, that bulk is not that far off from Tana's, and Tana's is quite acceptable. So hey, here we are. So as far as a Blade Tome goes, yes, she is about on par with Tana, if not even better in certain cases. However, she has more to it. Now, I did not include the Blade Tome set for obvious reasons. I mean, if you can't figure out how Fury Desperation work, you failed. This is also in a Goat setup, just like Reinhardt, since that can maximize the attack and speed. Although, I'm using Swift Sparrow here, and a Rally Attack Speed Plus unit. That said, this is not required. Rally Attack Def can also work just as fine. Rally Attack Def Plus, that is. If you don't want to use Rally, yet again, you can just ignore rallies altogether. If you do not have a rally, Swift Sparrow 3 will typically be better. Otherwise, you may want to consider Sturdy Impact. Now, that said, if you're on lower merges, obviously Attack Plus is still better. Speed Plus becomes a bit more acceptable. This will still push your speed to 44 speed without any Goads interaction on there. So, yeah, her speed is not exactly a problem, and if she had access to Flashing Blade, she would be damn near impossible to hold down. But since she has only access to Heavy Blade, well, that attack is a bit shaky, isn't it? You're looking at, well, unmerged with attack plus, you're looking at 59, 63 attack. I say 59 with 2 goads, 63 with 3 goads. So at that point, if you're on low merges, you should ditch Heavy Blade altogether and run Sturdy Blow 2 instead. This will actually fix your defense somewhat, and also improve your attack. Quite simple. Once Mirror Strike, I believe that's the name of the skill, that is basically Sturdy Blow but attack and res, becomes a seal, you could definitely also run Sturdy Impact with Mirror Strike too as a seal. That will push your bow to 30 in both, which in turn would be quite good. That said, that's the type of combo you can really only pull off on high merges or if you run Speed Plus, so do keep that in mind. Other than that, the set is very self-explanatory. You have enough attack for the Heavy Blade, Ruptured Sky procs twice, and if you're on Desperation, well, that's literally twice without the enemy having a chance to hit back. It hits quite hard at that point. Not to mention, goads are the type of stuff that Brave Eye cannot stop, even with Bjork's Blessing, so there's that on top of it. That said, while I do point this out, I do want to point out that Brave Ike is probably our worst nightmare, because frankly, Brave Ike can face tank a plus 10 Ishtar at this point because of his refine. Depending on how he's built, he very well could tank a fully powered Ishtar. So be careful, because Brave Ike is actually pretty good now. In fact, if there's a category where I'd say refine is a must-have, Brave Ike is one of them, but that's going to be something I cover in a video in 1 or 2 days. Sorry guys, I should have worked on more videos today, but it's quite hard for me to do so nowadays. I actually ended up sleeping for a change today, so oh well, it is what it is. So, as I mentioned, essentially, she is a Ruptured Sky monster that way. Even if you're fighting someone with Special Fighter or anything of the sort, if you're under Desperation with Heavy Blade active, you will proc Ruptured Sky through Special Fighter also, which is quite worrisome for quite a few Beast and Dragon units alike. But yeah, overall a fairly solid set, and you can literally yet again switch Dance out so she herself can be danced. That works quite well for all of the wrong reasons. However, here's where we get in the category that blurs the line between a dancer and a main unit. Let's start with Neff. Boy oh boy, that kid is underwhelming, but do not let that fool you. That stat line is insane. I've said this before, but outside of Alm, I do consider Jamke to have the best stat line overall. That said, a mere dancer has not only more BST than Jamke, but also just overall a slightly better stat line. A dancer. You see, as far as non-bow / dagger unit goes, as long as they're not infantry unit, dancers seems to be fine in Gen 4. However, they kind of just throw the towel away the second that Gen 4 came out with infantry units. To put it in perspective, Neff here has 157 BST, okay? The other dagger / bow infantry dancer unit, PA Olivia, had 140 BST. In fact, all of the dagger dancer infantry of last year also had about 140 BST. She has 157. A gap of 17. I also want to point out the fact that Gen 3 did not happen before less than 6 months ago. And Gen 4 started last month. A 5-month gap. And Alm is about 4 months old, I think. So, just for a recap, infantry bow and infantry dagger units got a boost of 10 BST between Gen 2 and Gen 3. Gen 3 to Gen 4 got another 5 BST to those types of unit. In fact, they gave 5 BST to everyone. At this point, 6 months ago, or actually no, 4 months ago, Gemki had the highest BST of the game. Then a month later, a unit with 10 more BST comes out. And now this Dancer has 5 more BST than him. Add 10 BST because that's what they subtract from Dancer now. That's 167 BST. Yes, you got that right. If a normal archer came out that was an infantry unit nowadays, it would have 167 BST. 15 more BST than the highest BST of the game as far as infantry archers and bow units are concerned. Less than 5 months ago. Do you realize how stupid this is? Do you realize how big of a gap this is? Gen 1 infantry bow units are the most ruined type of unit of this game. To put it in perspective, a Gen 1 infantry archer has 147 BST, while an infantry archer in Gen 4 would have 167. That's 20 BST. At this point, I do think that infantry bow and infantry dagger units of Gen 1 and 2 should get a 5 BST increase. Genuinely do think that. It's getting just at a level of ridiculousness I could not have expected to see. It's just ridiculous. It's gonna get even more ridiculous when I compare BST, but anyway, let's go in comparison first. I've put Dragon Flowers on both to also showcase just how stupid this situation is. A full Dragon Flowers Gemki and a full Dragon Flower Neff are tied in stats. Tied. A Dancer ties the second highest infant, or rather, before her, the best BST outside of all of this game. And that's with the flower system in mind. I don't want to see, like, ooh, now Gen 1, Gen 2 Archer Dagger unit can have 15 Dragon Flowers. Because that would go from 860 flowers to 1860 flowers. That's kind of a huge jump. I'm just taking the 200, which is what you need for the 10th one, and multiplying it by 10. And that's if they don't increase the numbers. Wow. Guys, you're killing yourself right now. You're killing the game. So, anyway, looking at the stats, they are tied in attack. Already there, that's a bad start. Nephany has 2 more speed, 6 less def, which doesn't really matter because at the end of the day she has 7 more res. See, Gemki's main issue is that when you run life and death on him, which you typically should, he ends up with 18 res and 45 HP. 63 bulk is not exactly high now, is it? And that's kind of an issue for Gemki in general. Nephany can run life and death and still have 66 bulk. At bare minimum. So and she ends up with more overall bulk, more attack, and also more, well, equal attack and more speed. Also costs less than infantry flowers. Now granted, Gemki is a free unit and typically should be taken over Nephany, but if that's a Dancer compared to one of the best archer infantry of this game, can you just imagine how it's gonna be when we get actual archers that are not meant to be Dancers? This is going to be ridiculous. The fact is, an archer right now would have the same kind of BST that Mordecai has. Let that sink in. It's ridiculous. And here, just so you can get a bit of a comparison here, this is all the archer unit of this game, sorted by BST. Obviously, I did not pick all of them, but you get the idea. Lyn, which is a Gen 3 flying archer, has less BST than a dancer has. Same thing with Loki. A trainee archer has less BST. Oh, and I guess that's my bad. Faye has more BST, but frankly, who cares? Overall, she's not that great of a unit. Still, only 5 BST behind from Ulm. It's less than 10 BST difference from armored archers. Niles is less than a year old, and at this point, infantry archers would have more BST than he does. Yep, this is the situation we're in. I don't understand why no one is talking about this. I understand that, you know, I don't really talk about power creep too much myself. However, this is plain and simple, poorly made power creep. I don't talk about power creep much because I consider most of the power creep be okay outside of Legendary Ulm, Ophelia, Legendary Azura, Fallen Corrin, and to a very, very, very lesser extent, because there's so many ways to play around him, Surtur. But this is just overall power creep. It's not one unit they screwed up on. It's every future units. I really do hope that they increase the BST of Gen 1 and Gen 2 archers and dagger units. Because at this point, imagine summoning colorless. As far as building unit goes, you either pull Mercedes, Brady, or you give up. I guess Klein could work, though Gemke does the same job but better. Yeah. This is the reality of the colorless pool right now. You have very, very few dagger and bow units worth investing in. And staves units, well, they really just depend on what you want to go for. But even if you want to go for something in general, Mercedes and Brady typically do most of what you need. So it's like, what's the point of the colorless pool, right? Oh, but they might demote units in the future. Yeah. Yeah, demoting maybe 1 unit per month when they actually do demote a unit. I don't count on it. I do think that right now, it's kind of fucked. And the colorless pool needs to be improved. That's kind of just how it is. That's kind of what happens when you boost the BST of 2 unit type by 15 over the course of less than 6 months. But I digress. Let's move to builds. Set on the right is a set for supporting. Set on the left is, well, very obvious. I think you can guess what it is there for. It's a DPS set. Surprise! So not only can she hit basically Olivia's level of bulk, but she can also hit Gemke's level of offense. Yeah, that looks fine. I see no problem here. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Death is a super boon. So, yeah, that's +4. But yeah, not much else to say here. If you've seen any set that my Gemke pulls off, she can pull it off somewhat better. So, there you go. Like the special spiral AoE set, she can definitely pull it off very easily. So, yeah, there's that. You can run attack speed 2 as AC also for the Brave Bow set, that works just as well. But yeah, let's move on. Berkut with the blue dual infantry, and for the 2 people who want to know, yes, I ended up pulling one. Yes, it was fathered almost immediately for Oshidian Festival Ryoma, since mine is +10. Now let's talk about the unit itself. You know, I was expecting his BST to be 155. It's 161. That's fine, I guess. So, his kit is garbage, as is basically everyone's kit in this banner, outside of the ones that are properly built, aka Ishtar, and I guess to some extent Reinhardt, though he missed the DB4 that he should have. That said, this is just atrocious of a set. This is just the set that screams, "Father me, please!" However, if you're going comparisons, do you see the issue? Yep. This is Ryle. Right, even. Berkut is essentially Oboro fused with Lucas. That's the best way to really describe him. Despite the fact that he's a dancer, he has almost the same defense as Lucas and almost the same res as Oboro. You typically would use Oboro to make a mixed tank, essentially. That would work well with Berkut's lance. However, here comes Berkut with the same res, more def, more attack, speed being lower, which doesn't really matter, and more health. This is real. They actually greenlit this. Even Lucas compared to Berkut is like very one-sided. Berkut ends up having more speed for what it's worth. 7 more res, which is extremely important. Also, 1 less def and 4 less HP, which those don't really matter. But 1 more attack. Why does he have overall better everything? Well, better everything, just more attack and more res, which are the key stats here, really. Berkut is an extremely versatile unit. That said, Oboro does have a lens that gives her 6 in def and res, which is worth mentioning until you kind of realize that Berkut's lens exists, and Berkut can very much use it. In which case, the only thing that Oboro really has over, well, Pretty Boy over here is defense. However, another thing becomes clearly abundant, and it's the fact that Oboro's lens does nothing against ranged units. Berkut lens does, however, give the 7 res against ranged units as well, which makes Berkut a overall better DC user. Yay! So this should be familiar to you. Summerell Bindi was very similar in a way, though with lesser res, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Also, if you're curious about BST, here you go. Berkut is beaten by a trainee unit by 1 stat. Shiro, which hardly matters. Fjorm, which tried to be Berkut but with a speed stat and failed miserably because that attack is terrible and that speed is barely salvageable at higher merges. Yeah, it's safe to say Berkut is kind of better than all of the above. The only unit that can somewhat compare is Donald. However, Donald does just a worse role all around as far as mixed tank is concerned, except having a speed stat that can prevent him from being double a bit better. That said, it's not really a whole lot at the end of the day. And then after that comes the Gen 1 lance units. Of course, Berkut is going to be better than them. He has more BST. Well, it's more so the fact that his stat line is extremely min-maxed as a lance infantry. How odd that denser Berkut crushes to the ground both fallen Berkut and base Berkut. So essentially, Berkut, when he's happy and he just stops being an absolute douchebag to Rhenia, just somehow becomes an absolute monster on the battlefield. However, the second that he's an asshole, that he sacrifices people for power, he ends up becoming weaker. Makes sense. Anyway, going for builds. So you see with the build on the left with Berkut's lance and warding stance 3, the res jumps to 57. That's right, 58 attack, 57 res, and 57 death. To put it simply, if summoner support was also enabled here, and he had flowers, he would break the 60 in both attack, well in all attack, death, and res. Death and res would be at 60 and attack at 61. Dancer, by the way. This is what I mean by they don't really understand how Dancer should work. Dancer should, by all intents or purposes, be worse than a non-Dancer unit. Yet, frankly, as far as lance infantries are concerned, Berkut kinda invalidates most of them. The only one that really matters here becomes Brave Lucina, and even then, Brave Lucina is awkward as all hell. I'll explain why on the Refine video instead of this one, which hopefully should be coming either Monday or Tuesday. Don't quote me on that though, it's just really hard to find time. So yeah, this set is typically to just make him more tanky in general while he buff people. You can also get rid of warding stance. I just wanted to point it out because it gives high bulk, so Berkut can be used as a wall while protecting your units, essentially. However, if you want him to be a better buffer, you can run speed tactic and attack tactic together, kind of like what I did with Neff. Set on the right is a lot more battle ready, and with that said, works insanely better if you have a Brave Lucina on the team. Yes, to put it simply, with Brave Lucina here, you hit 50 def and res. Okay? Obviously with someone next to you. Which could be a mage unit with infantry hexblade, because why the hell not? I'm not salty. I'm not salty at all. It's almost like infantry units are not broken or anything. Oh wait, they are, because they get access to like 50 more skills that no one else can. Anyway, so 65 attack, actually no, with Lucina that would be 68 attack, 50 def, and 50 res. Get hit once, proc Iceberg immediately for an extra 25 damage, typically one-shotting your enemy, and if it doesn't work, well, it doesn't matter. You just probably will get hit a second time for basically peanuts or nothing, and proc Iceberg yet again. Again, this is a Dancer unit that can be used as anything but a Dancer unit, or a Dancer unit, or an hybrid. It's fine. It can basically be anything the hell he wants. This banner in a nutshell. I just decided, let's stop pretending that we don't want the power creep and just go all out. So, yeah. If you don't have a Brave Lucina, obviously Fierce Breath would be probably ideal for you. And yeah, there's not much else to say here. Berkut is obviously a monster at this point. Still can't believe that the most armless looking Berkut is the best one of the three. It just... it makes no sense. But yeah, this was my review for all 4 of them. Hopefully you learned something new, and hopefully I just, you know, give something to these infantry bow/dagger units. That's getting ridiculous, frankly. But, yeah. I suppose that's all I have to say here. Oh, and also before I go, for the 2 people who think the whole... Well, it makes sense that they have less BST than the whole new stuff. Power creep is a thing that has to happen. Yes, I do agree. I absolutely do agree. That's why I had no issue as far as power creep was concerned until Legendary Azura came out. But what I mean is that the BST increased for that specific type of unit, for those 2 specific type of unit. It increased by 15 in less than half a year. That's not power creep at this point. That's power acceleration, I guess. It just doesn't make sense. It's way too much in way too little time. Anyway, though, I guess I'll see you later or on Discord. Have a nice one, everyone, and good night.